You're now owned by a dog.
Didn't you also, y'all met with staff?
Oh, yeah, I need to write it all down there. I met with several people.
Okay. Oh, yeah, your cousin Bedford, yeah. That's right. Hello, Chris. Hello, you're a great partner, man. You're good on our little thing.
Knocked it out.
Oh, good.
We knocked it out, didn't we?
I call this meeting of the Hurst-Euless-Bedford Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Good evening to everybody. Tonight, the Board of Trustees is meeting in a called work session board meeting. The board welcomes and appreciates comments and input from the community. Open forum is provided at each meeting to allow the public to address the board. There will be two open forums tonight. Open forum number 1 is to hear requests regarding agenda items only. Open forum number 2 is to hear requests or make comments regarding non-agenda items and will be heard at the end of the meeting. Those addressing the board are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes per meeting. The speaker should identify his or her name, group affiliation if any, and make a brief presentation with an identified solution if one is sought. Remarks should be addressed to the board as a whole. Oral presentations may not include charges against any employee or board member by name. It is my responsibility to determine if a person addressing the board has attempted to resolve a concern informally or through the district's complaint policies. If not, the speaker will be directed to follow the appropriate policy. The board requests that all presentations be made in a courteous, respectful, and professional manner and asks that speakers monitor their own behavior. If you wish to speak during one of the open forums, please fill out one of the cards located on the table in the entry hall. Dr. Harrington, any comments?
Yeah, I wanted to share some clarification. There was an article in the Star-Telegram today that they misunderstood some of our information that we had sent, and they stated that we were going to be reducing our staff and that there would be staff layoffs. You know, with the end of the ESSER funds, there's going to be changes. We cannot fund all those positions, but we're not reducing any staff. Everyone will have a position, and our HR department has been working very hard to make sure that everyone has it. And while we're still working on it and not all the positions are in place, we're going to continue to work on that. So maybe it's semantics, but we wanted to be very clear. None of our people working for HEB are going to lose their jobs. And so with what's going on across the state with funding, we wanted people to understand, yes, ESSER is gone, but even with ESSER gone, we're stable. We cannot have all those positions, but we have positions for all of our people.
Thank you. Any additional clarifications?
No clarifications.
All right, we're ready for open forum number 1. No cards. So at this time, the board will adjourn into closed session pursuant to Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. The board will adjourn into closed session pursuant to sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.076.
Well, it can be, but we both got enough commodities to just cash to the pros. I just paid a couple of bucks for upgrades and good, really good seats. During the summer, we usually drop about 12 or 13. It is when you're a three-quarter times section. And here's the thing, Denmark is very expensive. Like, I mean, yeah, the hotels, but the food is, like, I mean, we've only there 4 days. No, we're still dropping 1,500, 2,000 bucks just for 4 or 5 days. And we have to pay to stay. So, yeah. When I picked up this, Denmark's really cool. It's a really neat, Copenhagen's a lovely city. I recommend it to everyone. I'm happy to, if you ever decide to go, I can give you a big itinerary. I can hook you up with all the details. Prague is in Czechoslovakia, well, Czech, yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, Prague is a oh yeah, Prague is very cool. Prague is cool, Budapest is cool. Because you kind of get the old and the new together, so you have these buildings that are 700, 800 years old.
At this time, the board will reconvene into open session. We're at item 6.01, disbursements for the month of February 2024. Were there any questions on those?
No.
All right, board meetings streaming. Dr. Hopkins.
Good evening. Josh and I are here tonight to speak with you about a special request for some data related to our board meetings and the streaming. So we're going to take our presentation and just look at the numbers associated with our streaming.
So the original YouTube channel was established in April of 2011. We didn't start streaming until, I would say, 2020, 2021. When we actually started streaming itself through YouTube was 2021, in July of 2021. Since then, we've gone from about 400 something subscribers to we are over 1,600 at this point, which is about a 350% viewership increase and subscriber increase. The total views we have for just the board meeting videos is 20,801. We only have 68 board meeting videos up there. Out of about 150 videos, 68 of them are board meeting videos. Average views per video is 306, and this is all without explicitly and overtly advertising the board meetings and the streaming going on. This is just people tuning in or finding it, stumbling upon it, and watching it.
So we have 8,066 hours of total watch time for our streamed board meetings. The average viewer duration is about 15 minutes and 7 seconds. So they jump on, they look for a specific topic that they're interested in. We have about 17 concurrent viewers, so those are viewers who are watching in real time. And then our peak concurrent viewers were 394, and that was the 2023 THS graduation. We understand that's not board meeting viewership, but we wanted to share that information with you. Following closely behind that was the Bell 2023 graduation. Do you have any questions?
No, I just find it very interesting and just helpful to know, you know, if we're being, if our meetings are being watched.
Well, I think we can all agree, and Josh and I had this conversation, the fact that we do not advertise these meetings and we have our viewership where it is says a lot about the work that you guys do and the information that we are sharing in these meetings.
And if we want to change or do something different, you know, we can talk through what that would look like. But I think a lot of it is probably more of just notices on Facebook. I mean, because that's what we do see some the other districts have been doing. One of the main reasons we wanted them to present was as we started receiving the readouts, the printouts from the data, I'm like, I can't read this. You know, I needed them to come and put it into our lay terms so we can understand that, because they're looking at it from that engineer's side of it coming in and hours and minutes of viewership.
All right, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 6.03, random intruder audit report. Mr. Phillips.
Good evening again. So just an update, since this will be trying to do these about every 3 months just to keep everyone caught up. But we have, since our December report, have had 8 other audits. We should have 3 more during the month of March. So we had three schools that needed corrective action during January and February. The first was Bell Manor, which was a door that was an exterior door around the back of one of the spaceship-shaped buildings that does not always close. So we've done a much better job of ensuring that those doors are checked several times a day, just because we've had problems with those doors repeatedly. So we did have one that was fixed that day. We had one with Bel Air Elementary, with the brand new school, which was just opened. It's about 2 weeks in, we had an audit. Not all of the doors were fully adjusted at that point, so we were continuing to have problems making sure all of those were in place. So again, we had maintenance out and fixed it that day. And then we had Shady Oaks Elementary that had another door that was locked but was not fully pushed shut. So I speak with the auditors that are coming out every month. We are above average and still doing really well. So they have made the comment that we're doing well on our schools. The fences that are going in place at the elementaries have definitely helped a lot with where the auditors are getting access to and where they can't. So they like that part. But we have Officer Katoa, who is out as our security officer, who is checking regularly and assisting with the campuses, and then myself and Mr. Fuller, as we're out there, we're also checking. So we've got multi-level in place. We're doing really well, and I'll let you guys know how the March and April and May audits go. So, any questions on? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. All right, 7.01, financial statements for the month of January 2024. Mr. Williams.
Okay, good evening. We're going to be looking at the financial statements for January 31st, 2024, which is obviously the first month of our calendar year, but it's the fifth month of our fiscal year. So we're going to look at the general fund first. We have a fund balance of $233,715,769. That represents revenues over expenditures in the amount of $62,520,120. Tax collections are rolling in, so that number's going up pretty quickly. It'll go up even more after February. One thing I was going to point out this month, investment interest revenue for this reporting period was $2.588 million compared to $1.581 last year. So we're continuing to do and that last year's was a big increase on the prior year. So we're continuing to do very well on investments, which is really helping us out in our current budget year and in future budget projections. And then another bullet point I added this month was, as of our latest state funding template, I think I visited with most, if not all of you about this, but with the increase to the homestead exemption to $100,000, that obviously drove down our tax collections on the local level, but it increased our state funding and some other things on the state level. But most importantly, what that did is it took us out of being a formula transition grant district. We are no longer on our latest runs, unless they change something that drastically changes those formulas again, we're out of transition grant, which is a good thing because that enables us to capitalize on some different state programs that we haven't been able to capitalize on the past. So moving forward, I guess to summarize that, it's going to help us with our current year budget. It's helping us with our future projections as well, as we had talked about. So, and as of January 31st, we were at 40.37% spent of our budget, and as I said, we're at the fifth month of our fiscal year, so 5/12 or 42%. So we're below where we need to be for this time of year. So with all that said, fund is performing better than expected. So the general fund matrix, payroll was at $72,586,702 for the period, which is at 84%. And as you know, that's inching closer to that 87, 88% where we'll end up at the end of the year. Utilities, the second highest expense was at $1,849,246, or 2% of the budget. And instructional supplies were at $1,296,884, also at about 2% of the budget. Child nutrition services, that department is continuing to operate very well, and as I've said in the past months, that they're running at a normal amount of unfilled vacancies for food service. They're running 8, 9, 10 a month, which is pretty typical for turnover in the child nutrition program for those workers. At 1/31, they were at 34.11% expended. Of course, that's well below the 42%. That fund is also doing as expected. Debt service fund, we just made our February debt service payment, not well before, but a few days before the February 15th due date. The next debt service payment of $29,838,006 will be due by August 15th, which our total debt service for the year was $36,566,012. And one thing we talked about doing a defeasance. We'd set aside funds in that budget to do that. But probably what we're going to end up doing is actually incorporating that excess monies into our first, since we just sold our bonds the other day, we'll incorporate that money as a interest payment on our first payment. That's because we'll have to make a payment in August, so we'll use that excess funds up that way instead of probably doing a defeasance like we did last year. CK Pre-K Fund, that has a balance of 571,376. That's revenues over expenditures in the amount of 381,900. That's revenues received as of this reporting period. We're at 74.68% of budget, which is right on track. At 1/31, they were 34.95% of the budget expended. So that program is doing as well also. Special revenue funds, as of 1/31, those were at 31.95% of budget, but as I've mentioned every month, those are multiple funds that roll over year after year, so those numbers are a little skewed when it comes to looking at 5/12 of the year or 42%. But anyway, all those funds are tracking and doing as they're expected to do. Campus activity funds, that fund balance is $3,469,078. That's revenues over expenditures in the amount of $137,795. Of note, this month revenues decreased by $492,000, while their expenditures increased by $259,000. And then what that basically means is they've kind of quit fundraising and they're spending more on their projects that they fundraised for. So, but that fund is doing as it's expected to do also. The 2018 bond fund, we're going to see this go away eventually as soon as all the invoices come in and then they are encumbered. And as soon as those last invoices are paid out for some of the technology budget, this fund, we will close it out. But right now it's got a fund balance of $1,387,801. And of course, that's all expenses over revenues for the current period, $634,561. And as you know, that was most of that was used for the remainder of Bel Air, which we've used that part up. We're just waiting for these technology invoices and all those things they've ordered and encumbered just to come in so we can pay those off. And the 2023 bond, or what is now the Series 2024 issue, which, as I mentioned, we did that last Thursday. The district did extremely well, as I pointed out in the Friday update. I want to say hit a home run. Maybe we hit a grand slam. It was good. It was good. We had a great day. In the bond market, everybody, all the underwriters did a great job. And of course, now those funds that these expenditures, the fund balance of $2,457,037. Of course, that's all. The $1,035,000 is in the current period, but that's the total fund balance. All that will be reimbursed through the reimbursement resolution that we passed, and we'll recoup those funds for that. And I guess that's about it for that fund, but it's getting well underway. We'll be seeing this one for several years. And the locally defined capital projects fund, that has a fund balance of $25,759,696. That's expenses over revenues of $21,583,060. As you know, we don't put any funds in there unless the board chooses to put funds in there, with the exception of we will reimburse ourselves for some of the properties we've purchased in connection with the bond. So there will be some funds coming back into this fund from that reimbursement resolution. So, and like I said, these funds are being used to finish up Bel Air, different projects, baseball, softball concessions, a few other things. So, and then if we choose to do any other special projects moving forward at the board's approval, we'll do that. I think that's it, unless you have some questions.
Any questions on the financial statements? All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. Were there any questions on the international student travel? All right, item 7.03, termination of agreement for RFP 22-27, Technology Asset Recycling Program. Mr. Kerbo.
Well, good evening. Back in early 2022, the fall of 2022, we agreed to purchase some touchscreen, interactive touchscreen panels for all the elementary schools. Those replaced smart boards and other devices that were in the campus. So as a result, we had a ton of technology that just doesn't sell at auction, doesn't bring anything. So we put our heads together and decided we'd like to go out and put together a technology asset recycling program to see, one, if we could generate any revenue, but more importantly, clear out our warehouse and so forth of these items so we can put it out in a responsible way, such as not to or to minimize the impact on landfills. So we issued RFP 22-27, and this was a revenue generating RFP. So we went through the process and selected a vendor and awarded the vendor as an administrative action. So normally revenue generating purchases don't come to the board because we're not expending any funds. And truthfully, we didn't know how much this would generate. Well, as you can see in the information in the board report Friday, we generated a considerable amount of money. It didn't reach the $100,000 mark, but we were only so far into it. But we began having problems with vendor performance. They did a good job picking up the technology originally, but they failed to do that, and they failed to deliver on revenue that had been generated through this process. So because of that, we're asking the board to approve termination of this agreement.
Any questions? All right, Technology Asset Recycling Program.
All right, so obviously this goes hand in hand with the one we just discussed. So we still have technology building up, right, Lindsay? And so if Mr. Forrester were here, he would agree, and so forth. So we are looking at an alternative or another solution, and we've located some vendors that are local that can serve us better, and certainly have proven themselves in other districts that I've worked with. So we're asking for the board to approve letting us proceed to negotiate an agreement with these vendors.
All right, any questions?
And Gary, why don't you just talk about, it is an asset generating, but we want to bring it to the board for information more.
Yes, and this is more for to make you aware of what's going on, obviously. We didn't want you to be out in the public to find out issues with our previous agreement and then find out that we've entered into an agreement here. So this is not an item that requires board action. It's revenue generating, but we want to bring this to you as a point of awareness so you'll be aware of what's going on.
And there's a chance it could generate more significant amounts, and so we felt this would be an item that and then moving forward, items like this, we feel like we should be bringing to the board, and what we've got to decide, are they going to be action items or reports?
So is this an action item, or will it be in the consent agenda?
I anticipate it just being an action or a report item. It'll be revenue
it's sitting
generating.
as an agenda item, but if we don't have to have board approval and we've given the information, then we may pull it from the consent.
Okay.
But I do think we need to make sure that we consistently are giving the board information on these type of actions.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, 7.05, purchase of pre-kindergarten playgrounds at 2 campuses.
Can't leave yet, can I?
Still you.
All right, back in, I think it was April of 2023, the board approved the purchase of 5 pre-K playgrounds. And then in September, approved the purchase of 8 additional pre-K playgrounds. This item right here is for the final 2 that won't be needed or that remains to be installed, other than the 4 campuses that are awarded through construction manager at risk, that those pre-K playgrounds will be part of that construction contract. So this is our final 2, and I think it's over 109,000 654, which makes it a board item because it's over $100,000.
All right, any questions on the playgrounds? All right, thank you. 7.06, recommendation for fentanyl and suicide prevention lessons. Dr. Johnson, or not Dr. Johnson. I'm just reading the name that's here, so.
So excited to bring Ms. Stacy Force to you. She's going to talk about the work that she's been doing with the SHAC committee and bring this recommendation to you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Okay, so I'm bringing this to y'all tonight as part of new legislation that was passed this year, designating that each school district shall annually provide research-based instruction related to fentanyl prevention and drug poisoning awareness to students in grades 6 through 12. This legislation includes a lot of different pieces, but the pieces that we're going to be addressing here specifically through counseling and the school guidance program is the fentanyl awareness and prevention and the suicide awareness and prevention. So there's three different pieces I'm going to talk about tonight. One is the rollout of what this is going to look like this year, and then what it is going to look like in future years. And then we'll talk a little bit more specifically about what we're looking to do with the fentanyl prevention piece, and then what we're looking to do with the suicide prevention piece. So our anticipated rollout for this school year, as this is new legislation, is for March through May sometime of this year to give campuses a little bit of flexibility. And these are going to be 25 to 30-minute lessons, one for the fentanyl prevention side and another 25 to 30-minute lesson on the suicide prevention side. In elementary, for 6th grade, this is going to go through class guidance. That's how typically guidance is done at the elementary level. The counselors are going into the classroom and presenting this guidance. At the junior high, it's going to be delivered through the advisory period that they have. And in high school, it's going to be delivered through the teams and the Trojan Talk. And at the same time, when these are done through these lessons, we also will be sharing all of these resources and the presentations that are done with the parents, because what we want is not only to make sure that we're educating the students on these, but that we are educating the parents as well. And we'll talk about it in a little bit, but there's going to be local resources and things that they'll be able to refer to as well. And we want to make sure that parents have access to that along with their students. In future years, as we look to expand the kind of counseling and guidance side and add in some more pieces, we really want to be more intentional with when we do these, and we want to pair them up with Suicide Prevention Month in September, where we are able to have that lesson then and any other activities that may be happening or sending things out on social media through that, and then Fentanyl Prevention Month, which Governor Abbott designated for this year as of October. This October, we weren't able to get there yet, but in future years, we would like to pair these up with really where they're most appropriate and continue to be able to push information out to parents and students. So the fentanyl prevention is one lesson. It's the same lesson for grades 6 through 12. The essential question they're looking at is, why is it important to be aware of the risks of drugs being manufactured with fentanyl and other substances? And the main topics that are covered in the lesson are, what is fentanyl and why is it dangerous? What's considered a lethal dose? What is naloxone, or what most people call Narcan, and how to use it? And also, where is it located on campus, so that students are aware of that. How can we raise awareness about the dangers of fentanyl? And then how can students stay safe? And how can they get help either on campus, or also what are our local community resources in the area that parents and students can reach out to? So this is the lesson for fake and fentanyl. It's a one pill can kill. This actually came from Beaverton, Oregon. There was a student who ended up taking a pill, what he thought was a painkiller. Turned out it was a counterfeit pill, and it was a lethal amount that led to an overdose. So his parents and the school district responded by creating one of the first curriculums in the country to really address this in 2021, and it's been widely shared across their state and across other states as well. And of course, this is linked here for y'all, the lesson, the teacher guide, and other resources. But like I said before, what's included in here also shows really what are our local resources and the stakeholders that we involved in this. Of course, the counselors are aware of this legislation that's coming out, and we've been kind of working on what this is going to look like for our district. And then it was also presented to the SHAC committee in order to get feedback from everyone and make sure that we were including all of the different pieces that we wanted to. And that, of course, includes, the crisis team, our licensed chemical dependency counselor. So we really looked to make sure we were getting the best resources that we could for families and students in our area. So for suicide prevention, this is split into two pieces. There's one lesson for grades 6 through 9 and a different lesson for grades 10 through 12. And the topics that we cover in this are what's considered a mood disorder, what are the signs and symptoms of depression, who is a reliable, trusted adult at their school or also in their community that they can talk to about their mental health, what is good mental health, how do we maintain good mental health, and what does that look like? How students can help themselves and their friends stay safe, and then again, how can students get help on campus and then locally as well. And the curriculum that we're basing most of this on is from a group called Erica's Lighthouse. So this was also something that was spurred by a family who lost their child to depression at age 14. And their motto is really not to let anyone live in depression alone, to bring it to the light and to have other people, be a part of it. So again, that's split into two different lessons. There are teacher guides for them as well. And then there's also a bookmark. I don't know how, Ty, can you bring that up for me? That they can get at the end of the lesson that kind of gives I know it's a little bit small on there, but it helps to give them, highlight what are the signs to look for in depression and, possible suicide thoughts for themselves, for their friends. What is the resource number that they can use, the hotline that's open 24 hours, and it has a place where they can also identify on there for themselves who is that trusted adult either at school or in their community. So this is kind of a larger part of a push that we're looking at, hopefully another program that I'll be getting to talk to you about soon, to really look at suicide prevention just in general and what more can we do with that being one of the leading causes of death among students. Okay, any questions?
So I have a real quick question.
Okay.
I'm familiar with Teams and Trojan Talk, and first off, this looks really great. What does this look like being pushed out to parents, or what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. So one of the things that we were looking at, that I would like to do, is to send out a district-wide email to different grade levels. Either I can send that or the campus can send it, depending on, usually Teams and Trojan Talk's a little easier because they're doing it on the same day, but at junior highs that might look a little bit different. But to make sure that that information is sent out to parents with an email, and typically I like to follow that up with a text because I know things can get lost in email, just to kind of let parents know, hey, this information is out here. A lot of the information as far as the suicide piece is also on our crisis team website that's linked in a lot of places, and we're going to ask them to add also the pieces of the substance abuse, which I think hasn't been something that we've really had listed as publicly. And then again, in the future, next year, as we hope to kind of expand on this, I'd like to work with PR and marketing to see what other things we can be posting on social media, or what are other ways that, again, we can promote kind of these areas of focus for each month.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions on this report?
On the Teams and Trojan Talk piece of this, are we relying on the classroom teacher to provide this instruction, or the mentor within Teams and Trojan Talk?
For this one, it would be mostly the teacher, but we would want it to be kind of a partnership. I know, I did Trojan Talk when I was at Trinity, even as a counselor, and I worked with the teacher. And again, this is one I think because of the sensitive nature and what we're expecting, it would be more teacher-led, but we would still want the mentor that's in there to help be part of those discussions.
Okay, I think that's great.
Yeah.
I didn't want
Yeah,
our
that
mentor.
feels a lot of pressure.
The
if
delivery
that's
of
not
this
some-
instruction, I think, is very sensitive, and I think it
Yes.
needs to be delivered with some sort of structure. And
Absolutely, and the
Are we-
teacher
are we
guides are very
preparing
structured.
the teachers for the instruction?
Yes, it's very structured, and it talks about, how do you create that safe environment to start with, and then also, should you have a student be uncomfortable, where they can go, that we will have, the counselors and social worker and all of that kind of ready if it brings up something for students, because sometimes when you're talking about these sensitive subjects, we know lots of people have been touched by both of these issues in their lives, and we want to make sure that we're providing an open, safe space for them to talk about those things. So that's one of the things that was really important to me when we were putting this together, is to make sure and have a very structured guide for the teachers, especially because unfortunately at secondary it can just be a little bit difficult for the counselors to be the one doing the direct instruction for all those pieces, whereas at elementary that's typically what they're doing.
Excellent, thank you.
Where is Narcan located on our campuses?
I will let Joy speak to that.
At the elementary level, only the nurse has the Narcan. We didn't really feel like.
Oh, you want to come to the mic?
For our elementaries, it's only the nurse that has the Narcan. We just had that discussion and did not feel like that was something we wanted to put out where young students could have access to a medication like that. At the secondary level, the nurse carries Narcan, the SRO has Narcan, and then we have Narcan in all of our AED boxes. Those are clearly marked. They also have instructions on the inside, so literally anybody could read the instructions and use it if they needed to.
Thank you. Kind of worried about like choir programs and activities after school that the nurse is not at school, so it's good it's in the AD.
Yes, it's clearly marked and those are unlocked so anybody can access it.
I put the AD in the gym and the auditorium and one outside my office.
Any other questions I can answer?
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
They're going to steal them out of the AEDs.
All right, we are ready for action items. Consider approval of donations for the March regular board meeting presentation of certificates of appreciation. Any questions on any of these? I'll accept a motion.
I move that the board approve the March 2024 donations as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the March 2024 donations as presented. Please vote. And that motion passes. 8.02, consider approval of updates to the 2024-2025 staffing table. Ms. Tuttle?
So in the detail section of the staffing table, you can see all of the new units and reorganized units that were discussed with you previously. Did not list those all on the front because of the number of them. Are there any questions about the staffing table?
Any questions on the staffing table? I'll accept a motion.
I move that the board approve the new units to the 2024-2025 staffing table as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the new units, the 2024-2025 staffing table as submitted. Please vote. And that motion passes. Consider approval of designated district non-work days in compliance with HB 3033. Ms. Hollander?
Yes, House Bill 3033 provided districts an opportunity to designate business days. This is something that we did bring to you. I believe it was last semester because we were finishing up the calendar year. So every calendar year we bring this to you and we need to designate 10 days because of and you've got the list in front of you of the national holidays and the days that are already designated. Because we have other days off like spring break, we need to designate those days. So our recommendation is that the board approve March 11th through the 15th, which is spring break, November 27th, which is one of the Thanksgiving holidays, and then the December 23rd, 27th, 30th, 31st through the 31st of 24. Those would be our holiday, our winter break. And then going into the next year, we will bring this to you again, and so we will bring it to you every calendar year.
All right, any questions on the designated district non-work days? I'll accept a motion.
I move the board approve the March 11th through the 15th, November 27th, December 23rd, 27th, and 30th and 31st of 2024 as a designated non-working days in compliance with House Bill 3033.
Second. I have a motion, a second for the board to approve the March 11th through 15th, November 27th, December 23rd, 27th, 30th through 31st of 2024 as designated non-work days in compliance with HB 3033. Please vote. That motion passes. Consider approval of bid package number 1 for Phase 0 of the detailed scope of work for LD Bell and Trinity High School replacement campuses. Mr. Kerbo and Mr. Minor.
Well, good evening again. I'm going to introduce this item and talk a little bit about it, and then I'll yield to Josh, and we have our architect and construction manager here too to answer any questions if needed. This is a little different item than you're used to seeing. This is our first foray into construction management at risk, so it works a little different than just a construction or as a general construction or general contractor. So what you have before you are what is considered Phase 0 work that needs to be done on both the sites of LD Bell and Trinity High School just to get things going. We generally refer to this as early work. It could be, excavation, ground preparation, anything that is unrelated to vertical building, for the most part. So, and you can see the different amounts there. And we provided the bid packet information that subcontractors will be provided to be able to submit bids to our construction manager. So with that, I'm going to yield and let Josh say something because I know he's chomping at the bit to do so related to this. He has more detail and deeper understanding as to what this means.
Well, I'm really just ready to field any questions that you might have, but just like you said too, this is the first time we brought this to you before. This is pre-construction services to set us up and get us all ready. A lot of these things we're trying to do is get ready and have a good hard start. So if you've looked on Trinity, we're going to be relocating the W building. We're really pushing hard for that because we want to be able to move that population at a good break in the year. Really don't want to do that. You don't do that mid-year. We really don't want to do that over a Christmas break or anything like that, so that's why this one's so substantial. And the other is to move all the portables to do that. And in talking with our principals, they really would like to set their traffic flows, and so that's another part of this too, is to be able to set the parking lot at Bell to get all that set with the students and have them all ready and to be able to start that at the beginning of the school year. Just field any questions. If you have, we do have Joris and Corrigan here with us this evening if you have any other questions for them.
Okay. What questions do y'all have?
So Josh or Gary, as we are jumping into this, like you said, this is our first foray into it. This is Phase 0. Talk to us about what we can expect going forward as far as how each phase layers itself into a final guaranteed maximum price and how these prices in Phase 0 impact that.
So if I understand you correctly, it'd be like if you're building a house and you're doing a draw for each phase or each portion. When I was building houses, I would do a draw for basically getting out of the ground. So it would be site prep, field prep, utilities, foundation, and I'd get to the foundation, then we would do a draw, then we'd stop there. Then we get another one for all of our framing, roofing, and all rough in, and basically get into the dry. And then I do my next one. So that'd be similar to this, is our first GMP is going to be for Phase 0. And then the next one will be Phase 1. So at Trinity, you can imagine we're doing all of the athletics building. So there'll be a GMP for that. And then as we move through the different phases, there'll be one for each one of those. Bell will be a little bit different because we've got we're going to do the Phase 0 and then move right into the main portion of the building. And so you'll have one large portion. So that's one of the things I was trying to explain to you guys in our write-up is it'll look more substantial at Bell than it would be at Trinity because it'll be broke out a little bit different.
Well, you're almost there. So I think we've talked in terms of a guaranteed maximum price of the whole project, but we are really looking at separate GMPs for each phase.
Yes.
And
yes.
The numbers we're seeing right now can we look at these as GMPs for Phase 0?
Yes.
Okay.
Affirmative. Yeah.
And I might add too that we're not finished with the design of these projects yet, so really we can't get a guaranteed maximum price until that happens. Once the design's complete, then the construction manager can put together bid packages and send that out. So you'll receive an initial guaranteed maximum price, which will represent the most that we'll have to pay. There may be some adjustments due to value engineering or material costs, labor costs that can be achieved through savings, but that's what you can expect. I did speak with Joris earlier this week, or last week, I guess it was, and their plan is to issue an initial guaranteed maximum price and then come with a final guaranteed maximum price. So you'll actually be seeing two of these. So just that's what you can expect from this process. Obviously, Phase 0 has its own need to be able to move forward with it and get board approval, so for us to move forward like this. And just so you know, these are bids that the construction manager will be issuing, not the district. So we're not advertising, putting it together, but we will be present on the day of subcontractor bids to partake in that little event. It's a lot of fun. I don't recommend it if you don't have a lot of time, though.
Any other questions? You look like you had one, Fred. So I was just...
Gary, this is new to me. Is it typical to have a contractor say, okay, I'm going to do these 12 things, but these 13, I'm not really sure what they are? I mean, every one of these has a number, but they have almost as many things that aren't covered in it. Is that
That's pretty typical.
Okay, okay.
It's very typical. Yeah.
Okay.
I do that a lot. Okay. Yeah, so eventually we're going to have a max price for the entire project, but Phase 0 is just kind of getting the ball rolling so that we can get something started.
And yes, and the costs that are in here, whatever they end up being, we'll pay the actual cost not to exceed what's in the bids, are part of that guaranteed maximum price. So this is not outside of that scope. In either event, it won't exceed the amount of budgeted for these projects.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? And I'll accept the motion.
I move the board approve the Gyrus General Contractor to issue bid package number 1 for Phase 0 for the detailed scope of the work of LD Bell and Trinity High School replacement campus as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve Juris General Contractors to issue bid package number 1 for Phase 0 for the detailed scope of work for LD Bell and Trinity High School replacement campuses as presented. Please vote. And that motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, open forum number 2. All right, other business. Does any board member have any items they'd like to request for a future board agenda? All right, I have reviewed the board activity chart, and it looks like we're in pretty good shape with that. We do not need a second closed session, correct? Then I will accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned.